Okay, hello everyone. Today we are here in Portland at KPDX in the Cessna 172 Skyhawk in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We have a short flight to Fairways, OG20, and that is a free airport that you can get from Orbx. I will put the link in the details so that you too can have it. Today we're going to show off some of the features of Flight Simulator 2020 and have a little bit of fun trying to talk with ATC and get out of a Class C airport and make VFR calls using the built-in ATC system. Before we get started though, there's a couple tips and tricks that I've learned over the past week that I'll share with you so that you too can benefit from them. Alright, so we'll start under Options, General, and if you're like me, you probably like to take cinematic videos of the exterior shots of your flights. So if you go down to Camera and scroll down to Chase Camera, you can turn off the heads-up display that always remains on in exterior shots. The other thing that's handy is going back over to accessibility. You can change the scale of the interface, so if you have a large monitor, the menu items won't take up as much real estate. Okay, next go over to Assistance. And one of the interesting things under piloting is you can turn on Assisted Checklist, and that will allow you to either delegate the checklist to the AI or put it in evaluation mode, in which case it will require you to do the checklist but call out the items as you do it and help you do it. So it's a good way to learn the checklist. Further down under notifications, I like to turn off all the notifications so I don't have all of the help with nameplates and things like that. Under navigation aids, taxi ribbon is helpful if you keep getting lost taxiing around the airports because it will give you blue arrows you can follow to get to your destination. And some of these other things like fauna markers will take you to interesting points of interest where animals are located. If you go to controls, so one of the first tricks in controls is to realize it filters for assigned by default. So if you're searching for a control to assign, it won't come up because it's not assigned. So changing it to all will let you search all controls, and you can search either by name or by input. If you go to keyboard, you can map all of the camera views to keyboard shortcuts. So both internal and external views, just like an X-plane, can be mapped to different shortcuts. It's a little quirky in that it only works in the particular camera mode you're in, so you have to be in external camera mode to use an external shortcut. You can also save internal cameras with keyboard shortcuts and then bring them up with your assigned shortcuts, which is handy. That works a lot like X-plane does, which I like. Okay, going over to joystick. One of the first things I assigned was quick look left and right to the toggle on my throttle. Lets me turn my head left and right. Very handy because head tracking isn't working for me currently. I'll have to get Track IR or another solution for head tracking. I assigned releases for both the brakes and the parking brake. I assigned the trim to my hat switch so I can toggle the trim up and down. And also super handy, you can map ATC responses. So I mapped ATC response 1 to push to talk. So whenever ATC asks for confirmation, I just press the button. Another handy thing is sensitivity. Under sensitivity, you can mess with the profiles for each of the axes. It took me a while to figure out that it was the big blue button up there. It's not quite as sophisticated as X-plane, but you can turn up or down the sensitivity and adjust the dead zone. Okay, another tip is how to assign your tail number. So it's in the aircraft screen under ATC options. Go up to tail number and just type in your tail number. That will update it visually on the livery for your airplane, and also ATC will use that to refer to you. Okay, for today's flight, we are flying from KPDX to OG20 Fairways, and that's my last tip. Fairways is a free airport you can get from Orbx at their website. Orbx also sells several airports which are not available on the marketplace, and you get a discount if you already own them for X-plane. So don't buy from the marketplace. Go over to Orbx and check it out because you can get free airports and also cheaper airports than you could just from buying them on the marketplace. There it is, there's my tail number, November 359 Golf Charlie. Alright, so we'll start by bringing up our checklist. There's actually a pretty good checklist for the default Cessna. And because I enabled the AI Copilot to complete all these tasks, we can just delegate that to him, which is kind of nice. So I'll just show you what that looks like for these 19 items. If you click on the eyeball, it will highlight what you're supposed to be looking at. And I'll show you how the evaluation feature works.
Electrical equipment.
So here he's verifying that it's off.
Avionics switch, bus 1 and bus 2. Off. Fuel selector. Both. Fuel shutoff valve. Open.
So in that case, he just verified that they were in that state. But if we actually had to change the state, I would have to do it. So that's a handy way to learn how to start up the aircraft on your own. So we'll do the rest of the checklist ourselves. All right, so get our battery on, get the beacon on, mixture to full rich, fuel pump on, fuel pump off, mixture to lean but not cut off, feet on the brake, clear prop, and ignition, and mixture back to rich. Okay, so for this flight it's very short. We're going to fly south of Portland along the Victor 448 radial. So we're going to fly the Victor 448 radial at 160 from Battleground VOR. So the first test is to see if the GPS and the comm system allows me to do that. So I've entered 116.6, which is the Battleground VOR nav frequency. Into nav 1 I did that manually, and I just clicked on nav 1, and indeed we do get the Morse code ID for 116.6, and I can verify that versus SkyVector. So if I click nav GPS, it'll couple it to the GPS, and if I toggle it back, it'll go back to nav. So we're on nav, so I'm going to dial in 160, which is the radial that we want to fly, onto OBS. There we go. Ah! Come back. That is touchy. Alright, so we're at 160. On COM 2, I'm going to put this on 121.5. I don't think Guard is used by Microsoft Flight Simulator, but that's normally what I have COM 2 on. Okay, so here's one of the things I really like about Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's the ATC system for VFR. So in X-Plane, there is no ATC system for VFR. You can only do IFR flights. But I can request VFR departures, I can get flight following, I can request airspace transitions, I can even make CTAF calls from the built-in ATC system, which is really nice. So we're going to start by tuning into Portland clearance. And we'll see that there are no options for VFR requests. Some airports direct VFR pilots to contact clearance even when they're doing a VFR flight. So in this case, there's no options. So I'm going to move over to ground next, 121.9. And now I've got options. So I can request taxi, intending to remain in the pattern around the airport, or departing, various options. So I want to depart to the south, so we're going to do request taxi, depart to the south.
Portland ground, Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie with Alpha request taxi to the active south departure. Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie taxi to and hold short of runway 28 left using taxiway Golf, cross runway 28 right Golf Foxtrot Bravo Charlie Echo. Contact tower on 123.775 when ready. Taxiing hold short runway 28 left via taxiway Golf, cross runway 28 right Golf Foxtrot Bravo Charlie Echo Cessna 9er Golf Charlie.
Okay, well that was a little funky. I don't think you'd say request taxi to the active to ATC, just say request taxi. So pulling up our Portland chart, we are, and I was able to zoom in on the Garmin and see where we're at. So we are currently at GA parking on the northeast side of the airport, and they want us to taxi to 28 left, which I guess that's the runway they're using, even though we're right next to 28 right. So we're going to drive all the way around the airport to get to 28 left, and they want us to do that using taxiway G and crossing 28 right. Alright, so these don't make a lot of sense to me. So if we look at the airport diagram, we are currently, according to the Garmin, right near A4 on the north ramp. So the logical place to send us would be along Alpha to 28 right for takeoff. So instead my instruction is to taxi via G, which there is no G at Portland, so I don't know where that's sending me, and cross runway 28 right GFBCE. So 28 right so 28 right is on the north side of the airport, and 28 left is on the south side of the airport. So if I cross runway 28 right, I'm gonna go off of the airport and into the grass, and then into the Columbia River. So we probably shouldn't follow those instructions. I guess I'm just going to ignore ground's instructions, which of course you wouldn't do in real life. I'd ask for clarification, but so we're going to taxi via Alpha, Echo, Bravo, and hold short of runway 28 left. So basically we're going to go around the block to the left. So we did a flight from a local airport. Whoa! We just almost killed that dude. Okay, that wasn't good. See, no head tracking. Alright, so this is Alpha. I've done many X-plane flights out of Portland. I have the really excellent KPDX from Flightbeam Studios for X-plane, which I recommend. So I'm pretty familiar with the layout of the airport and the taxiways. Alright, so this would be Echo. I don't know what it's labeled at in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Don't mind us just bahaing through the airport. That's not even a taxi line. Okay, that's not good. Oh wait! I see a taxi line. There we go. That's what is that? That's not a taxi line. It's got taxi line markers. Yeah, there we go. Okay. See, I guess I could have turned on the blue taxi line ribbon to help me. I was gonna fly to the airport, but maybe we'll just taxi. Hey, we finally made it to 28 left. So we're guilty of multiple FAA violations already just from taxiing from the north side of the airport to the south. Let's see what we can do when we actually get in the air. So we're going to tune the tower. Yeah, I guess it's not acknowledging where I'm holding. I'm holding short runway 28.
Portland Tower, Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie, ready for south departure at runway 28 left. Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie, cleared for takeoff runway 28 left, departure to the south approved. Cleared Cleared for takeoff runway 28 left Cessna 9 Golf Charlie.
Okay. I should have done this before I asked for clearance, but make sure that this is all set up. So we're not going to use flaps or mixtures to full. Beacon is on. We'll get the landing light on, fuel pump on, strobes on, pitot. Everything else is good. Our transponder is still in standby, so we need to have that turned on to altitude mode. That looks good. We don't need anything with our GPS, and otherwise we look good. Alright. A little squirrely with the rudder control, even with the sensitivity turned down. Airspeed's alive and looking good. Coming up on 55, and we'll rotate. And it pulls off the ground pretty much like I expect. It feels right. Not too hard to maintain runway heading. Climb rate is less than I'm used to, I think, flying the Cessna in X-plane. You can see it looks good. If you look at my vertical speed indicator, in fact, I'm ballooning up to about 1,000 right now, but it'll maintain around 700, which is about right, I think, for the Cessna. But, you know, I find I have to pull back on the stick more in Microsoft Flight Simulator than I do in X-plane, and it seems like if I were to pull back on the stick in X-plane the same amount during takeoff, that I would really balloon up, but here it's just about right. And whoops, I didn't quite cross the threshold of the runway, so you know the rule is you've got to reach the end of the runway and be at least 400 feet above ground before you make your turn. So I was 400 feet above ground, but kind of cut the corner there on the runway. Okay, so we're going to make our initial turn and continue climbing out. The scenery, of course, is fantastic. And the Cessna flies well. You know, I noticed it moves around a lot more. I think X-plane is a little bit more, not on rails, it's not the right word, but the weather model in X-plane is calmer. You know, like winds are consistent and they don't really move you around as much. If it's gusting, you'll get blown around, but it seems in Microsoft Flight Simulator, no matter what I'm doing in the Cessna, it's always kind of jittering back and forth and moving around, which I think is much more realistic. It's not like you're, you know, flying on a road. The airplane's always going to be making little adjustments and bouncing around. Okay. Coming up on 2,000.
Cessna 9 Golf Charlie, you are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved. Portland Tower Cessna November 359 Golf Charlie frequency
Okay,
change.
that's a little odd. Okay, so I have to request a Class C transition from approach.
359 Golf Charlie is type Cessna Skyhawk 4 miles southwest of Portland.
Okay, so what should have happened there is I should have already had the departure frequency given to me on the ground, and tower would tell me to contact departure, which is really Portland approach, and I would have then gone over to departure. So instead what happened is Portland Tower just kind of dropped me like a hot potato, and they're like, alright, see ya, bye. And left it up to me if I wanted to call Portland approach. And then when I did call them, they didn't know anything about me, and I had to request a Class C airspace transition, but I was already inside of the Class C airspace, so it's a little late to request a transition when you're already flying inside of the airspace. So that was kind of strange. It is nice that they put the squawk code in for me, so they gave me a squawk code and it just dialed it into the transponder. So handy bit of assistance, but you know, the way that should have all played out is normally I would have probably been directed to contact clearance delivery on the ground when I listened to ATIS, even for VFR flights, and they would have assigned me a squawk code, and they would have given me the departure frequency, and then I would have kept that and used that squawk code when I was in the tower's airspace, and then when I was leaving the tower's airspace, they would have instructed me to contact departure. They wouldn't have really given me the option because I was still within Class C airspace. So then I would have went over to departure, and they would have known that I was there, and they would have just, I would have told them my position, and they would have said radar contact, and we would have went on our merry way. But instead, it's kind of like they weren't talking to each other, so they just dumped me, and never gave me a squawk code on the ground, and then I had to call them again. Okay. Get ourselves back on course here. Okay, so I could see that I'm outside of their airspace now, but they never really told me to change frequency and squawk VFR, so I'm going to do that on my own, which normally you wouldn't do. And you can go to the nearest airport list, select fairways and the runway you want, and then do all your CTAF stuff. So I'm going to announce my position just like I would.
Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359
yeah,
Golf
that's
Charlie
pretty good.
5
That's
miles
a
northwest,
pretty decent
3,500
CTAF
feet
call.
inbound
It's
to
not
land
perfect
runway west.
phraseology, but it's not bad. And you can see I've got all these options for announcing final, crosswind, downwind, base, go-arounds. I like it. It's nice to have VFR options built into the ATC to let you self-announce positions and where you are in the pattern.
Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359 Golf Charlie is on downwind runway west.
Alright, we're on our downwind. This is a private airport, and it's just listed as east and west, but it's really runway 25.
Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359 Golf Charlie is on base runway west. Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie is on final runway west to land.
Okay, so I way overshot that. So I'm gonna have to go around, and you can see at the bottom here there's an option to announce going around, which is great.
Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie going around.
Yeah, I'm way off to the side of the runway here, so we'll get back up to pattern and give it another shot. You can always go around.
Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie is on crosswind runway west. Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie is on downwind runway west. Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie is on base runway west. Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie is on final runway west to land.
also ATC options updated to announce clear of runway. I'm not going to do that yet. There's no place really to park around here. There's fences on both sides, so I think I'm going to back taxi down to the other end. I saw some grass fields off to each side of the runway. I don't see any options for back taxi and ATC, so we'll just hope nobody else tries to land on top of me.
Oscar Golf 20 traffic Cessna November 359er Golf Charlie is clear of the runway.
Okay, let's get it shut down. Turn off the beacon, master, alternator. There we go. Alright, well, that was a lot of fun. So we had some ground hijinks there at the beginning. The ATC system could use some tweaking, but you know, I'm really happy with it. Coming from X-Plane, there are no VFR commands for ATC and X-Plane, so being able to actually talk to ground, talk to tower, make CTAF calls, all from the built-in menu. Even if it's not perfect, it's still awesome. So I hope you enjoyed the flight and also the tips. Be sure to leave some comments if you'd like to see some more videos like this. And as always, thanks a lot for flying along with me.